Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tennis Channel Inside In on the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Mitch Michals from the Santa Monica studios. Roland Garros is back. We've got a couple rounds, one round in the book, second round going. Joined now, almost a year to the date from her first time on the show. Top 40 singles player, Florida Gators Hall-of-Fame, born on the 4th of July. Jill Craybas, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be back.
I know. It's exactly like a year to where we were talking about before, and some similarities, some differences. Obviously, no Rafa, big sizable hole in the men's draw. The women's draw, and I guess we can kind of start there, Jill. We've actually got some tiers. We've got Iga, like we did last year, but some rising contenders and some players trying to get in her way and prevent her from winning that third Grand Slam at the French Open. What's been your thoughts of the start of the women's draw and some of the upsets that we've seen?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I always think it's been many years now, probably 4 or 5 years, that we've been talking about the depth of the women's game and how it's been pretty open for a lot of these players to make a stretch into the second week of the slam or maybe go for their first Grand Slam title. But you're right, there's so many contenders. I actually feel like that's becoming almost a similar situation on the men. I mean, I know there's Djokovic is still favored. Alcaraz is obviously one of the favorite. But as far as the women, yeah, I mean, Swiatek, I think, still is the overall favorite, but you got Rybakina. That's won a slam. Sabalenka won her first slam at the Australian Open this year and has backed up results extremely well. I think there's also a couple Americans that I think have been doing well. Pegula has been doing great. Sloane Stephens, one of the best movers on the clay.
You're covering a lot of ground. There's a lot. And we've only had one full round. Like, we just started the second, too. It's insane. The numbers aren't as surprising because you can get into it, like, with Garcia out, Sakkari, Kvitova, Bencic, Ostapenko, it goes on and on. Some of those weren't really what you'd call traditional upsets. Like Sakkari, it's a name, it's a high number, but that match was a pick'em by the odds makers with Mukova because they know Mukova is a good player. But there is something to be said about opportunity, right? Pegula, and we can kind of start there, has been playing well, looking for that big result. You have the draw in front of you. Like, there's openings there. Like, she gets into the third round relatively easy. Georgie retired today. This could be a chance for her given the field.
It could, yeah. And, and her movement has gotten so much better on the clay. So she's starting to feel comfortable. I think it's helped that she's played a ton of doubles as well. She just loves the competition. So, I mean, you definitely have to put her as one of the favorite. I think going into a Grand Slam changes a lot of things. The players try and peak for moments like this. So a lot of it depends on, the luck of the draw. Obviously, Sakkari got a really tough first round match against Mukova, as you mentioned.
And it's a little tragic, too, because that is opening now. Like, it's section 5, I believe, of the women's draw. Only seed left is Bagu. Mukova's like the favorite now. You've got wild cards, lucky losers, qualifiers. And
it's funny that you mentioned that, but Bagu's tough.
She is tough.
I mean, this is her best surface, and she did well in Madrid leading up to this event. So that's what I mean. There's so many good contenders, and you make a great point that a lot of times you see the seeds fall, but on paper,
and you never looked ahead, did you? You were one of these players that never looked ahead.
Looking ahead.
Well,
no.
I've heard it, and it's weird to the non-tennis, players like myself that, we like draws, we like TV, we like brackets. I think Jan Michael Gamble told me once, like, okay, if you're Federer or Djokovic, maybe then you look ahead to see, like, if you're at that level. But the reason why you wouldn't do it is for this very reason. Like, it's an opening, okay, but you don't want that thought in your head, right? That, wow, no seeds in my way. This should be my time. And then you just stumble all over yourself.
I don't know. I don't think everyone is like that. I do know there are numerous players that, don't even want to look at the draw. They just wait for their coach to tell them who they're playing, and they take match as it comes.
Right.
But there are some players that, that doesn't bother them. So I think it's very individual. And for someone, I mean, I think Jen Mike makes a great point. Some players do want to see the overall picture. Some players don't want that. So it's just a preferable what you prefer.
There's opportunities, across the board of some of the Americans. Got to give a shout out to Peyton Stern. She took out Ostapenko, who's as dangerous as it comes. I mean, you never know. We talked about it last week. You just don't know what to expect with her, good or bad. But Stern staying in the fight and admitting that, as a former college tennis player yourself, the adjustment was a pretty tough onboarding process, and it's happening quick for her. This hasn't been very long, and she's already in the third round of a major.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to see, and a lot of times it can take more time. And I just actually met her at Indian Wells this year, and I just liked her spirit. She's got a great attitude, really fiery personality, and I like seeing that. So you almost got the sense, like having just met her, that I felt like she was ready to take on that challenge.
Well, Cincinnati's born and bred, went to Texas, won the national championship there. But how about last week? Loses a brutal loss to Sloane Stephens. Just turns it off. I mean, that's impressive to me because that's a tough loss for a young player. I know Sloane's been to the top of the mountaintop, and a loss might not affect her the same way at the lead up before the French Open, but you have a chance to beat a great player. You don't do it, but yet here she is, just turned the page to the new tournament. It's pretty impressive.
Well, it's a good sign for me, because if you're having a player that can look at those matches and take away what you need to get better at and utilize that information right away, I mean, that's huge if you can have that from a very young age, or you're starting on the tour. I think that's great.
I feel like, and there's the the negative side of the upsets is players missing chances or losing matches they feel like they should have won. There may be the pressure, and we're going to get to the men's side of how it could help you, but Caroline Garcia just never seemed to have had great success here. She had one run in, I think, 2017, but tough match for Splinkova. Fought admirably, 9 match points. She saved 8 of them, but it's tough for her. And she's been open about how it's, the pressure being on her isn't a comfortable situation. It was an opportunity. I thought she was right there, just couldn't get those final few points.
It's always tough playing at your home slam. I felt the same at the U.S. Open. I grew up not far from there. I'm from New England, so I had a lot of friends and family come. So it's not easy to play in your home slam. She has had success in doubles, winning Roland Garros with Mladenovic, but she does put that extra pressure on it because she wants it so badly. And to be able to try and manage that isn't the easiest thing to do when you're playing at home.
I always thought it was interesting with her because she's had success clay. She's such an aggressive player when she's on, but maybe clay is not necessarily built for her. I know it's hard to say that, but I feel like sometimes she takes chances and it helps, but there are times when she, goes for a little too much. But that was a tough one to see for her, but Blinkova moves on, and you start to look at the picture. Someone like Coco Gauff, who's had an up and down year. This is the time of year where you can really start to kind of, I don't want to say salvage your year, but we're already into May, so this will be the time to turn it on. And she's got an opportunity coming up to, again, defend a lot of points, but get back to a place where she's had a lot of success.
Yeah, you're referring to having her get to the finals last year. It was a great run for her last year. I think she's capable of doing it again. For her, it's about having those matches and stringing together that confidence, because she can do it, but that confidence has to be there, I think.
I am very much looking forward to the potential third round match, that it would be her and a new teen on the block in Mira Andreeva, not to be confused with her sister Erica, who unfortunately lost in the first round, but 16 years old, born in 2007, just a scary thought for all of us. This doesn't look fluky. Like, this looks like
scary, actually.
yeah. She said her favorite player growing up, her idol, was Andy Murray. Like, I watched him when I was a baby. It's like great. But no, this doesn't look fluky. This looks like someone that's going to be around for a while. How quickly it happens, and that's a lot of the pressure we put on collectively in the tennis community. Someone like Coco as well, but Andreeva looks like she's here to stay, and it could happen sooner rather than later. Yeah,
and I think it's fantastic if she's able to manage all those nerves at such a young age, and all the expectation on her shoulders as well. And a lot of that has not only to do with her, but her support team around her and how they can kind of keep her grounded and focused. I think that's going to be the key. Do you think in terms of looking at the favorites, you have Iga, who's clearly deserves to be, looked crisp early, just starting her title defense. She knows how to count to 7 and get those wins. But there is added pressure, and we keep bringing this up. She had a transcendent year last year, and now she's having to back that up, defend all those points with some new contenders that are coming at the throne. How do you think she's handled it, and what are you looking for as the matches get tougher? Well, the thing that has impressed me so much about Swiatek, especially last year, is after Barty retired, she was kind of almost thrown into that number 1 position. Yeah. And you could easily be like, oh my gosh, I haven't earned that position yet. You wouldn't doubt her first feeling that or thinking that. But she handled it exceptionally well and went on that massive winning streak that she had. It was just insane. And I'm like, okay, if anyone deserves to be there, she does. And she kept it going. Losing in Wimbledon, the Cornet match, and then to rebound,
do well in the summer, win the U.S. Open, that's almost equally as impressive to me.
Yeah, it's just amazing what she's done. And I've talked to numerous coaches, and they said, they're looking to her to be the one to beat because she's got such a powerful game, one of the best movers on the tour, and just incredible defensive skills for when she's pushed out wide. So, I mean, one of the best movers for sure. That's why we're still putting her as the favorite here for Roland Garros. But as you mentioned, I mean, Rybakina has had her number a couple times. Yeah. So
no one else can say that.
Yeah.
And that they've had her number.
Figured something out, and she's got the power. She's got one of the biggest serves on the women's tour. So, and also Sabalenka as well.
Can you think of anyone else, your era or before, after, that's reacted less to big moments than Rybakina? It feels like she's just
her demeanor.
She's just locked in.
So calm.
It helped. I mean, that we make jokes about it, obviously, but it helps her because she's, the last match with Iga, I know she retired. She was down, could have been a straight set match, broke back late and won. So there's something right there, and there's something with riding the wave of tennis. But yeah, I think Rybakina is lurking an surface player.
Yeah.
The only reason she's not number 3 in the world is because of the Wimbledon point situation last year. This is a dangerous player who's, I would even say, improved her movement a little bit. If we're breaking it down, she's getting around the court very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, I heard some people talking about, they didn't think necessarily clay was her best surface, but that was the first time I ever saw her was here at Roland Garros a few years ago.
Serena, right? When she beat Serena.
Was at it, yes. Yeah. And I was like, I was impressed from the beginning.
She didn't celebrate that match either.
Yeah,
she beat Serena in her last French Open match ever, and it was just ho-hum.
And she just came out and vocalized the fact that she thinks she belongs up there. She thinks she belongs to contend for Grand Slam titles continuously. So, I mean, that just gives you an insight into her mindset and the confidence that she has right now. Yeah,
it's exciting. I mean, she's got the one major. She made the final of Aussie. She's looking like a threat here. She's on the same side as Iga, which is unfortunate in one sense, but in another sense, it's like you're going to have to go through her to win this tournament, most likely anyway. Sabalenka is the other one where she's trying to go 2 for 2 in majors in 2023, and the power is otherworldly. There's no one on the women's tour that hits like her. You see her, and you've followed her career as well, but she starts to rein in her emotions, and it's that tricky balance, right? Because you don't want to, give up what got you here, but having to harness it, and it seems like it's definitely a high wire act, but so far so good for Arena.
Yeah, well, you nailed it on the head, the emotions that she's been able to sort of temper a little bit, and you could see past how much she wanted it. She still wants it that badly, but in the past, it was almost like a couple mistakes here and there would get the better of her. And now she's learned to let that go a lot quicker, which is huge for her. And I saw that in the very beginning stages of this year, where she won a title and then won Australian Open after that.
Pressure's off now. It might be she had that knock of you're such a good player, you've never won a major. Now,
but to back it up as well and play well after that, because we've seen in the past some players get their first slam and then all of a sudden they feel that expectation, and she's handled it really well.
That's where I think, having been hardened by the tour and had success, she wasn't a new on the scene, but it's impressive stuff. Before we do get to the men, just any other thoughts or players that have stood out? I mean, there's still a lot of names, and there have been some great matches. Who else?
I mean, I think I just commented on Sloane Stephens' match today, and she's been a former finalist at Roland Garros as well back in 2018, of course, winning U.S. Open in 2017. But I think she's one of the best movers on the clay, and I've always loved her game. But for her, it's about, having that consistency, because
7 matches,
she's been up and down, but she's starting to play better. I would keep an eye on her. She's in the bottom half. So Swiatek obviously in the top half. I mean, you
saw Andreescu beat Azarenka.
Jabeur's back, which is great,
So Jabeur's a good one because health-wise, it's been up and down.
Correct,
She's been open about it. But the section, I know she probably doesn't look ahead, but there's opportunity there. There isn't the pitfalls that you think would get her early. That could be someone who's admittedly loved the dirt. Sloane was a good call because that's one where playing a tough match early. Pliskova might have been the best thing for her.
Yeah.
She's locked in now. There's no easing into a major, because that just seems the way.
Follow that up with a straight sets win today as well.
Yeah, I got to also shout out.
I feel like we could name a lot of people.
We could.
Kasatkina is great on clay.
Kasatkina's great. Pavlyuchenkova, former finalist, beating Samsonova is another one. And then, of course, we've got to mention the favorite too. And Svitolina, I want to give a shout out to her for new mother back in action.
I feel like we should give a shout out to everybody.
You could, yeah, there's a lot. More with Jill Craybas here on Tennis Channel Insight. And looking at the men's side of things in Roland Garros through round one, we're going to start with Gael Monfils because I think he deserves it after his moment that he had. That was something special. That was one where the crowd really did help their local guy win. He was dancing his way literally, not figuratively, through a body cramp. And he beats Baez, a tough player, an excellent mover, in 5 sets. He was down 4 games to love in the 5th set. That was unreal, unbelievable. And for a guy who's not going to have many of these moments left, it was just a remarkable thing to see.
Well, I mean, he just fed off the crowd, and he loves those big, entertaining moments, Monfils. Yeah. I mean, he just thrives in those moments. And so, yeah, I mean, it's tough. He hasn't played a lot of matches, obviously, after him and Alina just having a baby. So it's been great to see them both come back at the same time, but especially in front of his home crowd. I mean, everybody loves Monfils, just the entertainer that he is.
There's never been an athlete entertainer like him. I remember the first time I was really came across him was 2006 Roland Garros as a teenager. He beat James Blake in 5 sets, pushed Djokovic, the young Djokovic, pretty hard. And I was just like, well, what is this basically? This athleticism, this flair, this personality. The fans took to him at a young age. And, in the blink of an eye almost, he's already a wily vet and, rounding third on his career. But that spider cam shot of him crying on the ground, that is the answer. That's why these vets are still out here doing it.
I know, it makes me want to cry right now. I just got the chills.
Yeah, but it's like, it's so cool, and it shows you why, like, this is a first love in a lot of ways because he has the money, he has a family. Why are you still doing it? It's simple, but it's so deep. It's like, because he loves it.
Yeah, and I think you can always see the passion coming from him, and I think it's so inspiring for his compatriots too, not only his fellow players that are still playing, but the youngsters coming up to be able to see that. And to be able to watch how emotional it is for someone that's been around the tour for so long. It's pretty awesome.
Tough one coming up next, though, with Holger Rune. And I hope he's got a lot of cold tub time in between then. Also, I never, they had a horn section in the, a brass section in the stands. There was a trumpet and a trombone there. So I was like, I guess instruments are in play now.
I just did Luca Van Ash's match, a 19-year-old Frenchman. They had drums in the stands, too,
so against
Davidovich Fokina.
That answers a question. So I guess all instrument families are welcome. That's nice to know. Get a nice little electric guitar solo.
Yeah.
That's cool to see. Holger, a thought on him because, with some upsets that we'll get to, Holger entered this tournament with a lot of buzz, a lot of talk of can he be that third guy, and then suddenly Djokovic and Alcaraz are on the same side. Tough match with Chris Eubanks, former, current TC colleague. Rune gets through. He shows all the brilliant tools in his toolbox. My only concern, and it's not attitude, it's not flair, love his mindset, Jill, but it's the fact that in best of 5, he doesn't have a lot of experience, and it's been a little up and down with his health at times. So
yeah, I remember watching him some matches. It was Djokovic at the U.S. Open when he had some chances, and he started cramping a little bit, and I think that's happened to him a couple times. From that moment, I feel like he's learned to manage it a little bit better. I would agree with you. Maybe doesn't have the experience, but I do think he's a favorite here. And he was one of the names actually Djokovic mentioned as far as favorites other than Djokovic. And he mentioned, of course, Alcaraz, and Rune was the next one. And I would agree with him. I would put him up there as a favorite.
I think it's very fair to do that. And I think he's somebody that obviously won't back down. His game does suit clay very well.
And he believes he can do it.
He does, yes. Yeah. 9-6 now in 5-set matches, so we'll see as it progresses. But the opening is because Daniil Medvedev went out to see Bush Wild, and that was a stunning result in a lot of ways. But when you watch that 5-set match, it wasn't Medvedev losing it.
Yeah,
that kid was just pummeling forehands. It was very, very go big or go home tennis, but he went and got that victory.
Yeah. Look, I think whenever there's an upset like that, as many times we're like, okay, maybe, the top seed didn't play great or whatever it is, but the opponent still has to get through that.
Yeah.
Mentally, it's not the easiest thing to do when you're about to have one of the biggest wins.
When you're serving out the match 5-4 in the 5th.
Yeah. And it's just not easy. Your arm starts to shake. So you still have to convert.
Yeah.
And huge credit for him to be able to do that.
Well, Medvedev's love affair with clay ends. It was a great 9-day run from Rome, winning that to the first round. You're going to lose matches, and we've all been spoiled by the big 3, big 4 even, and Serena, that they just won every early round match. Like, this has been a part of tennis since its inception. Upsets and seeds go out early. It's amazing, but Medvedev will be fine. Some are hard courts. Wimbledon, we'll see, but I don't think we need to
worry about him.
Not too much. No,
he was pretty happy with his Rome title, and he came into Roland Garros. Obviously hoping he would do better. He thought the conditions were a little bit slower than Rome, which I found interesting because Rome was raining a lot. It was heavy. Obviously thrived in that moment. But it's tough. It's tough to keep backing up those results.
Opens up opportunities. We mentioned Holger. Jannik Sinner is at the top of the opportunity list. Yeah. He was in that section. He's 0-6 against Medvedev. Big opportunity for him and his new fan base of carrots, which is interesting. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that. That was amazing.
It's just guy just has a brand now.
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
it was fun to see them in the stands dressed up as carrots made of felt or whatever it was. But I love Sinner, and you made me think of him when you were talking about the demeanor of Rybakina on the women's. He's pretty similar. He's starting to show a little bit more emotion and fire, but he's very calm and collected. And I just, I love watching him play because he's so fast. He's just always trying to figure things out. And, you just want to see someone who works so hard just continue to do well. I would love to see him get a slam.
We mentioned it before. He's made the quarterfinals of every major. He made all but the French quarterfinals last year. He's knocking on the door. He's working on parts of his games. He's trying to make those little subtle adjustments. We hope the health holds up because he's somebody that has the game to be pushing through. So, he's somebody to kind of monitor there. And the top side of the draw is going to be looked at through Alcaraz and Djokovic's perspective. Carlos coming in as the favorite, a new role for him to just be this prohibitive favorite at a Grand Slam, but not one that's going to go away for his career. He wins in 4 sets over Daniil. I think it's good to see that he's just full steam ahead. There will be blips. Like, we know this. Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, they've all lost sets in road to majors. So, good for Alcaraz to not let the moment, so far so good, get to him.
Yeah, I mean, and I almost feel like it might be good to have a slight challenge, before
he might though,
getting into the making, it's going to get tougher and tougher.
The next 2 matches, Shapovalov, who good to see him back in form, and then could be Cam Norrie
or Musetti.
So it's ramping up for him.
That's what I'm talking about when you were saying the depth or the options for the women. I almost feel like the same as the men. That section too is Tsitsipas. I mean, Tsitsipas is in Alcaraz's quarter. Davidovich Fokina played amazing
last year. We talked about Tsitsipas at maybe the height of his wave, like he was looking really good. Went to the, it kind of soured from that point on, and there was some blips in the radar. French didn't go the way he wanted to. Lost first round U.S. Open. Kind of found it at Aussie. Has been up and down at times. We know the stuff with Philippus is not on the team anymore. He's still one of the best clay court players in the world.
Yeah.
The margins are a little thin with him, I think. He goes for a lot, and the backhand can kind of go away from him. But he's comfortable here, and he's very confident. That's one thing we know with Tsitsipas is he's going to be confident. So I think you hit it on the head there. Tsitsipas is someone to not forget about.
No, not at all. Yeah. And I know it's easy for us to be like, okay, maybe their form's not great coming in. Maybe they didn't have the results they expected themselves to have before a slam. But I feel like you never know what can happen. You never know when someone's going to rise to the occasion. Yeah. All of a sudden, things connect. You play a couple first, second round where you start to feel a little bit better. And I just feel like you never know when those opportunities may arise.
Well, we always timestamp this just because, this is going to go out Thursday morning, and then we don't know what's going to happen beyond that. But I would say Tsitsipas is in a comfortable position, favorable opportunities, could make some stuff happen. In the Alcaraz quarter, Djokovic is in the section for the semi. He's playing right now as we record this. I think with Djokovic, it's one of those weird things where I just never want to fully count him on. I know there's excuses there with injuries form, and he kind of does well when he's not the main favorite too. If you look historically, like he's kind of.
I mean, I think he does well when he's not the main favorite and when he is the favorite.
When he's just playing tennis, yeah. No,
you just can never rule him out. Yeah.
So, do you think Djokovic is important to get reps in? Do you think it's get off the court as quickly as possible? Because the rest versus Russ is pretty big with him, given that he hasn't played a lot, but he was nursing some stuff injury-wise.
Yeah, I mean, he also had, a torn ab at the Australian Open when he won it. So he's such a mentally tough player. I mean, even when he has little things, you just cannot rule him out. And I mean, it's not the easiest part of the draw. This is all in the top half of the draw. You also have Khachanov there, who's playing amazing, and you have Rublev down at the bottom of the top half of the draw. And I mean, there's just so many quality players. It's just so difficult to call.
Yeah, Khachanov never gets proper respect. I don't know why we don't always talk about. I mean, okay, he's not a
semifinal of a slam in Australia this year. I mean, he's
made
playing
U.S. Open semifinals too,
exactly,
like back to back. It's he's just a fighter, and I love that. We should
say second semifinal. Yeah. That's right. Thank you.
We always talk about like ceilings and who has weapons and all this stuff. But there's something about just good old fashioned fighting. It's like the Andy Murray thing. Fighting all the way through, and you're going to be overmatched at times, but it's how you respond. I think Djokovic, Alcaraz, if that showdown does happen, obviously would be great, but there are some factors in there that we have to consider. Another thing I wanted to ask you, this has been great here with Jill Craybas before we wrap this up, is players trying to regain their form, like Alexander Zverev, who was a semifinalist. Right. Can he regain his form? On the non-injury front, a guy like Taylor Fritz of the American, who's been the top American, well-deserved for a while, had some hiccups, but started on the ground running against Michael Mmoh. So which players from the outside can knock on the door and challenge?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, Fritz is a good call. I think he's starting to move a lot better on the clay than he used to in the past. Tommy Paul is very good on the clay. He's a very good American that moves well on the clay. You mentioned Sinner. Casper Ruud, who maybe hasn't had the results that he expects of himself this year, is starting to play better. This is his favorite surface. Has gotten to the finals here before. So he's one to watch. Who else?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt you during Casper Ruud because reports of his demise are greatly exaggerated. Everyone was like, what's wrong? What happened? He told you what happened. He should not have done what he did in the offseason. Those were his direct words. He mismanaged his offseason. He's looking better now. He's on the clay.
He played too much, right?
He played too much, and he did a lot of exhibitions and stuff and didn't get the proper training block.
It's such a long season, but
he's back to normal.
That's where you learn, yeah.
He loves it on clay. The way it's perfectly suited for clay, how he plays. And I know we're not looking ahead to draws, but stuff's starting to open up for him. So he's got a chance to make a deep run. Paul and Tiafoe's another one, the two Americans after Fritz at the top of the game. They've looked well round one. They're going into round two as underdogs separately. So you're looking at Jari taking on Paul, a tricky match. You're also looking at Tiafoe taking on a familiar face back again, Karatsev.
That's what I'm saying. All of a sudden you start to hear these names and you're just like, oh my God, yes, he's amazing too. And he could go far too. And Karatsev has proved himself in a slam and semifinals Australian Open and qualifying.
I kind of think it's good to have these early tests. Or also proves that, like, I don't know where you stand on the debate, but I really don't. I like 32 seeds. It's fine. Like, I like it. Players earn that right. And if the argument against it is not enough exciting for early round matchups, I'm going to be like, here we go. Like, look at round two. We've got
some evidence.
Yeah, there's been great ones. And also shout out to Thanasi Kokkinakis. Beat Stan Wawrinka in 4.5 hours, 5 sets. Only the second time he's ever made the third round of a slam. And it was RG 2015. It's been a long time coming for Thanasi.
I know, and he's so talented. I think we've all just been waiting for him to make that push. But he's been struggling with injuries, some health issues. So I think for him, just to see him healthy is exciting to be able to string together some of these matches and stay healthy.
Oh, if we're talking about health shout-outs and soft spots, Diego Schwartzman, love to see him back in round 3. There's so many good ones.
Love to see Korda. I know he lost, but love to see Sebi back.
As long as the wrist feels good, I'm not too worried. We saw what he can do in Australia. You beat Medvedev the way you do down there. That impresses me. But he's another one for sure. There's opportunities here across the board, and we didn't say all the names. We try to cover our bases. I do want to wrap this with who we're looking forward to in some of the rounds coming up. Tiafoe, Karatsev, as I mentioned, Holger and Monfils. Round 3, we are going to see Alcaraz and Shapovalov, and we're going to see Tsitsipas take on Schwartzman is another one.
Oh, my goodness.
And also shout out to Fabio Fognini, another dad doing well.
Don't make me choose. No. Don't make me choose anybody.
Women's matches, Pegula Mertens test. That's a tough one. And I don't know what to expect with Sloane and Putintseva. It could be a lot of
Putintseva has the advantage in the head-to-head 3-2. So that's going to be a lot of long points.
Fighter. That's what Putintseva is. Exactly. She's a scrapper out there, and if Sloane can dictate pace. Well, is there anything I forgot? Anything else you're looking forward to?
You did a great job of covering.
I tried to get as much as we could
everyone.
in.
I know.
You've been working here nonstop early, so we tried to make it as painless as possible.
You're always great. Thank you, Mitch.
Well, Jill Craybas, this was a blast. Thanks for coming on Tennis Channel Insight, and it's always a true pleasure.
Anytime. Thank you.